against mandatory spay and neuter ordinances because they are ineffective wherever they have been tried. Thank you also to the council people who recognize the lack of credulity of the statistics cited in the staff report. They're ludicrous. Early spay and neuter in animals has lots of adverse physical effects. UC Davis, in conjunction with the Golden Retriever Club and the AKC Canine Health Foundation, did a study on juvenile spay and neuter. Animals are experiencing increased rates of cancer, increased problems with structural health, increased temperament problems. Also, the statistics on bite prevention as a result of early spay and neuter are inconclusive. So much of the staff report I would question as being poorly researched, unfortunately. People become scofflaws because they're afraid of being caught by these regressive laws. So rabies vaccination goes down, animal care goes down.
I want to make very clear, I'm not opposed to spay and neutering. But what I am opposed to is laws that have the potential to disproportionately affect lower income people. And when you start to pass these kinds of laws without the infrastructure in place and without the possibility for low income or for low-cost spay-neuter options, you really run into problems, and you run into problems that do have a disparate impact on your society. Look around at Riverside County. They're having a lot of problems right now. This is exactly the kind of thing that can land you in court. When you start to enforce these laws in a manner like they have been, they're having a lot of problems right now. So don't follow their model blindly off a cliff. I think this money and this effort would be much better spent on educating the public and on providing the resources, providing a voucher program, or something that will actually make this a possibility rather than punitive measures. They don't work.
And I wanted to again address some of the issues that were in the Pasadena Humane Society report. I was actually just on the website for the low-cost spay-neuter program, and what's interesting is that what's already been in place is mandatory low-cost spay-neuter for pit bulls and chihuahuas, the dog breeds that are coming in the most within the Humane Society. This program has already been in play for several years. Am I correct? Yes. So when you actually look at the report that was pulled by Pasadena Humane Society, when they're talking about their outcomes for 2013 to 2014, 2012 to 2013, which are the two breeds that are coming in the most? Pit bulls and chihuahuas. Thank you. Again, mandatory spay-neuter. It is a great idea. Spay-neuter is important, but unless you are really going to have the infrastructure to help support these communities and the pet owners, it's not going to work. It already isn't working for your low-cost program for pit bulls and chihuahuas. The demand is too high. It really is. That's why you need to focus your efforts on education, community outreach, and programs that are going to help owners keep their animals. Sometimes it's a matter of a couple $100. Somebody can't afford a surgery. But hey, they may end up having to give up their animal. Why not have an intervention program like Downtown Dog Rescue? That'll help these owners.
Personally, I adopted a dog that was fixed. He was highly aggressive. About 2 weeks ago, he got his advanced canine good citizenship because we worked with him, we trained him. It's not a matter of being intact or not. It's a matter of responsibility and the consequences of being irresponsible.
The original mandatory spay-neuter laws, as we have heard of them, were originated by a veterinarian who is the former president of the California Veterinary Medical Association, Dr. John Hemmel. And he is horrified to see where this has gone. Because when he helped devise these, he was thinking of dogs that were roaming the streets. He was thinking of dogs that were not responsibly bred. He certainly wasn't thinking of everybody's dog who had a responsible owner, because the health consequences to dogs are too dire. As was mentioned previously, I don't think anybody's hit on the growth plate issue. A dog's growth plates are not fully closed, and they need hormones to do this until they're 18 months of age. It does vary from breed to breed. But what this means is we can have problems with hip dysplasia. We can have problems with injury.
Ma'am, will you bring your statement to a close?
Also incontinence in females.
There is a growing body of medical evidence to suggest that spay and neuter, particularly early spay and neuter, may be medically detrimental to, mostly the research has been in dogs. A recent study published in the February 1st, 2014 Journal of the American Veterinary Medical Association, looking at 2,500 Vishlas, showed across the board an increase in all kinds of cancers in dogs that were spayed and neutered, particularly in the younger spayed and neutered group, and also an increase in fear-based behaviors. There was a study a couple of years ago at UC Davis that showed similar results with not only cancer, but orthopedic disease, hip dysplasia, cruciate ligament injuries, because we're altering the nature of the animal. An ordinance like this is going to affect the responsible people. They're the ones that are going to potentially want to follow the ordinance, and they're the people that are educated enough to be able to look at what's best for their pet and make a responsible choice. It's not an ordinance that's going to affect the stray, spay, and neuter population, where the problem really exists and where the efforts need to be focused.
Is the current speaker a veterinarian?
I'm a veterinarian, yes,
Thank
23
you.
years, UC Davis graduate.
My concern is that the unintended consequences of this ordinance, I'm against it. The unintended consequences of this ordinance are that you're going to drive pet owners into the shadows, underground. As it is, you have only 30%, less than a third of your dog population in the city licensed. So if you put out a mandatory spay-neuter ordinance, you're going to drive people underground because you're going to be afraid. The media is going to go crazy on this ordinance, and you're not going to have even fewer people coming out to register their dogs.
With mandatory spay and neuter, you're going to be spending money on enforcement instead of spending money on fixing the problem. And what the problem is that you need to educate, you need community outreach, you need low-cost spay and neuter, free spay and neuter, and not just low-cost and free spay and neuter, but accessible. So a lot of families that are low income don't have the accessibility to go to, let's say, the Pasadena Humane Society, so the accessibility of it. The city of Los Angeles has mandatory spay and neuter, and they've had mandatory spay and neuter, and it's not working. And as Ms. Tauscher pointed out in Riverside County, how there's selective enforcement, there is selective enforcement going on currently right now in the city of Los Angeles. The low-income communities of South Los Angeles are being targeted by animal control, and what it leads to is the people relinquishing their animals. Luckily, there is Downtown Dog Rescue that has an intervention program, but we hear about this. This is happening at this moment. So if we look at just our nearby city, we know that it's not working. My dogs are spayed and neutered. I agree with spay and neutering, but forcing a community to spay and neuter their dogs, going into their homes and requiring that isn't the way. It's education, it's community outreach, it's providing accessibility and the resources for it.
And I'm a professional dog trainer. I work with Downtown Dog Rescue, Angel City Pit Bulls, Wags and Walks, and a number of Best Friend Coalition partners throughout Los Angeles. What I've found in Los Angeles mandatory spay-neuter with the South LA Intervention Program is that mandatory spay-neuter targets the people who don't have the resources. It targets the underserved. That Flint Ridge presentation today was awesome. And that was an underserved community that's like taking control. That same community is going to get hit with this. The number one reason people surrender their dogs is because they can't afford spay and neuter. And the reason they have to surrender them is because they get targeted by enforcement. And the ones who get targeted are the male dogs, because you can see they're packing heat. Fees of $60 more isn't going to stop. It's like $300 more in LA, and they just don't license their dog. They just don't do it. It doesn't matter.
First and foremost, I want to commend this council. I stood up here in January, several of us in this audience did, and when you were trying to pass a pit bull spay and neuter only. You listened and you changed it from pit bull to all dog and cat. So thank you for doing that. I'm on the fence on this, and if you look at my card, I wrote both. I am 100% for spay and neutering. I used to volunteer at Baldwin Park Shelter. I help transport for rescue dogs that they pull out of Downey Shelter. Now I have 3 rescues of my own. So again, I'm totally for spay and neutering. It needs to be done. Problem I have is you have the Humane Society come up here. Last year you asked them to do canvassing. When I sat in this room in January, you said, Humane Society, come back in July with your canvas report. We're in July. You have no canvas report. You asked them for it at the beginning of when we started this spay and neuter thing. They don't actually have a real canvas report for you guys. So as far as I'm concerned, and what you guys should be concerned with, is everything they submitted to you, get a black marquee pin and just put a big fat X through it. It means absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. The fact is, you can fix a dog. You're not going to end aggression. It's all about ownership, responsible ownership. And somebody mentioned selective enforcing. I will put $1,000 right now with you, Mr. Madsen. Your number one target's going to be pit bulls. Number one. If you guys pass this, it's going to be you going after pit bull owners. It's that simple. $1,000.
I was here in January, and I was listening to Mr. Madison and his desire to get rid of the pit bulls. So that's why I came along with my 2 daughters. I'm very pleased that that is not what's going on tonight. I'm so up in the air about spay and neuter. All of my animals are spayed and neutered, and I think it's responsible. We're all responsible. But I think what we need to do is educate. And as a teacher, if we could get the Pasadena Humane Society and all the cities to send educated people to the classes of these children and teach these kids so they can teach their parents on the importance of spaying and neutering and being responsible, that's what we need to target.